Time for Summer Showcase, where we feature all the awesome stuff that we find or you guys send in. And starting us off, we have an actual Jinx gun by Patrick Preed from Germany. And this thing is the real deal. It actually shoots lasers.
It burns holes in things. Like, that's why this is so cool, right? Is the fact that it functions.
I was impressed when I just saw that it lit up. I was like, wow, this is really awesome. Yeah. And then I could see that it shot lasers. That's when it just blew my mind.
And I love the fact, too, that he's like, this is not for cosplay.
Right.
Definitely not.
Can you imagine that at a convention?
Yeah.
That'd be a disaster. That'd be a disaster.
It'd be terrible.
This isn't the only cool thing he's made. He's made a bunch of other cool stuff. He's got a Spider-Man web shooter. And he's got a Dead Space plasma cutter. He's made so many cool things that you can find on his YouTube channel.
And here we have a submission by Javi from Spain, and his friend is a really huge League fan, so he drew him in chibi form in all the roles. Sometimes when you're playing, you just like to think of yourself as that champion. It's like, you know what, right now, I'm Callista. So in this sense, he added elements of them, but his friend is actually the champions in this case.
Next up, we have a 3D printed Cho'Gath by Jeffrey from Texas, and we actually got to talk to him about it. Basically, he took two things that he loves, 3D printing and Battlecast Cho'Gath, smashed them together, added some LED lights, and awesomeness ensued. It wasn't just a singular entity printed. He took a 3D model that he found online, broke it down on the computer, printed the individual pieces, and then wired them together, and then followed it up with the paint and the LED lights.
It would look super cool in a room. It's like a night light. Can you imagine, like, right before you go to bed, you turn off the light and you see that lit up?
It'd also be a little scary. It is Cho'Gath.
And he's not done yet. He's got more ideas in the making. He was saying that he wanted to make Mecha Kha'Zix, but he's open to ideas.
Yeah, I would be so happy with Mecha Kha'Zix. That's my favorite skin in the game.
Here we have a Woad Scout Quinn cosplay by Owl Depot, and she really pulled this off. She looks just like Quinn.
And she gave love to a champion that really goes unnoticed in the League of Legends community, right? Like, Quinn is probably one of the least played champions in the game.
Quinn is one of the rare few champions in the game that doesn't have crazy, fantastical elements to it, right? She's got a bow, she's got a trained bird and stuff. What she's done, though, with the cosplay is really give it that natural, earthy feel.
It's just very empowering, strong, female. She pulled it off great, and she looks so much like Quinn. It's perfect.
Next up, we have one of the winners from the Polycount contest, which was a fan art contest judged by Riot. Now this week we're going to be featuring the illustration winner, Eternal Schism by Robert Kim.
Yeah, this piece is amazing.
He really played a lot on champion rivalries, and you see obviously with the Jinx and Vi and Caitlyn rivalries.
Not only is the finished product great, but the work that he put in to create the finished product really sells it for me. Like, for example, one of the things that he did was he noticed that one of his iterations was too horizontal. He even drew in the lines where he showed how horizontal it felt. And so he said, well, I want to make it more dynamic. So what he did was take those lines and angle them into diagonals to make it more dynamic. And I think that's just cool to see the kind of artist's perspective on things, that he went and analyzed that about his own art.
This really is a labored process that takes not only a lot of artistic and creative energy, but a lot of intellect.
That's it for Summer Showcase. Be sure to submit all your original fan art by clicking the link in the description below, and send us other cool stuff you find on our Facebook page.
And now we're here with MaTTcom, awesome fan artist and general manager of CLG. How did you get started in League?
I had a friend who had recommended it to me. He knew I was an artist and I was doing freelance work at the time, so he basically challenged me to do better than what Riot was doing at the time with their stuff. So I'm hyper competitive, and he knew this, so he pushed a button. And then I started really getting into League. I continued going on the message boards and seeing what people wanted, trying to come up with creative ideas myself and then pitching them there. But I wouldn't just post the idea, I would come out with an illustration. And eventually the two skins that were directly translated to the game were Pool Party Ziggs and Astro Nautilus. One is a terrible pun of sorts, so that's why I did well.
Some of the stuff that you come up with is just crazy. Like, for example, the fusion between Ziggs and Gragas.
Oh,
like,
yeah, that was hilarious.
Brilliant. How in the world do you even think of stuff like that?
Ziggs is a small character, Gragas large character. They both have facial hair of sorts. And with those things in common and those differences, you find a middle ground and work from there. I did My Little Mundo, which is just a My Little Pony version of Mundo, and because those are complete opposite things. These are the things I think about, taking the characters out of their normal context of the serious fantasy setting and making them a little bit more relatable.
Not necessarily intuitive that somebody would get into League of Legends via art and then find their way into the competitive scene, let alone being the general manager of one of the biggest brands in North America.
You know the meme challenge accepted? That's essentially my entire career. So I was like, let's do something for CLG and see how that goes. I made it, posted it up, did really well in the forums. They had an art director at that time, and they didn't necessarily want to be in that role anymore, and I said, no, I'll take it. After being assistant manager for about a year, living in the house with the guys, I eventually became general manager, and I essentially still do all of those responsibilities, but nothing happens on the back of one person, and I certainly am not that one person. So.
Yeah, I'm curious though. So you live with the CLG guys, obviously. Are there any funny stories that happened around CLG?
Every time I leave the house, something sets on fire or explodes. Like, they know that I'm paranoid and OCD about a lot of things. So when something bad happens, they'll be as vague as possible and just be like, explosion, gas fire. No big deal, don't worry about it.
If CLG were to win Worlds, right?
Oh, yeah.
Worlds, yeah, we're going.
It's like,
Lofty goals, right? No, but winning teams get skin sets.
I would 100%
right?
design those. Because I've made skin sets like that in the past, here and there, and some may say my whole career with CLG is an elaborate plot to design a championship series of skins. So I can neither confirm nor deny that, but I would raise as much hell as necessary to get into the creative process.
Cool.
well, it was so much fun talking with you today and just learning about your journey and your insight and just experiences. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, it was a pleasure.
All right, well, if you guys want to find more MaTTcom, check out these links.
All right, now it's time for BM or GG, and today we're going to talk about what's the most important piece of advice you received when you first started playing League of Legends.
Personally, the most important thing I ever learned about the game is the importance of last hitting. Because like when I first started playing, I'd see the champion, right? I don't care about the minions, but learning how important the minions are was like huge for me. On top of that though is how do you prevent your opponents from getting last hits as well? Or every time they do get last hits, you punish the heck out of them for it, you know? So that sort of balance for how to get your last hits and how to prevent them from getting last hits is really important.
For me, it's just focus on having fun and picking what champion appeals to you and who's fun to you, because when I first started, I was playing as Annie. I kept feeding like crazy. I just wasn't feeling her mechanics. I wasn't enjoying myself. And I looked at a champion, Caitlyn, and was like, hey, I think she's awesome. I think she'd be really fun. And you know, I still did bad at first, but it was fun for me and it took away the negative emotions from playing a champion that I just wasn't enjoying. And because of that, I was able to learn her mechanics better.
I think that's a really important point that you hit on there, taking away the negative emotions. Because like, you have control over the champion you're playing. That's one of the few things in League of Legends you do have control over. So be sure to set yourself up for success in that area. And playing a champion that you really enjoy is gonna help with that. When it comes to improving as a player, it was about being critical of myself after my gameplay. Because when you're in a game and your teammates do poorly, you can't change the way that they played. You can't fix their mistakes, and more than likely, they're not gonna be in your next game anyway. So it's not gonna benefit you to change them.
Right.
So the only person you can look at is yourself and the way that you played. So find something that you did incorrectly, wrong, or that you could have done better. Maybe you didn't even do something entirely wrong, but you could have done it better, and try to make that change in the next game.
All right, it's time for /R, where we take a look at your comments. On our last BM or GG, we discussed how many roles you should learn before hopping into ranked, and we got some awesome comments regarding that. OctaSteve weighs in saying, prior to ranked, you should know each of the roles. You may not be main level on all of them, but at least understand them. And then we've got Josh Huston, who says, on roles in ranked, I feel jungle is the most important role for you to at least have played a little bit and understand. Or you could always follow Dr. SpongeBob's advice, and he says there is only one champion, that's Tryndamere. Only play Tryndamere, you will win.
Jeremy Gaming Curio says, I really like how this series has evolved. Well, thank you, man. We appreciate that. And a lot of that's due to the fact that you guys have been throwing a lot of feedback our way. So please keep hitting us with it. It's really appreciated.
Sierra Moore asks, what's your opinion on ARAM? I think ARAM is pretty fun sometimes. I think it's a great way to practice team fights and stuff, but also half the time I just end up hating ARAM because the other team has Zera, TF, and Jace and all that and so I just don't want to play it that often.
Yeah, I'm one of the ARAM haters. I don't like it because so often it's decided in champion select. Anytime you play the game, you're gonna learn how to play the game. So why not just play Summoner's Rift?
I love it. It's fun. It's a way to play a condensed version and always team fight all the time for days. I'm all about it.
We also had a lot of great BM or GG and guest suggestions, so keep letting us know what you guys want to see on the show. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Here's the last law.
Oh no, son. He's mine.
Hey.
Me!
Somebody like texts me and says the propane tank exploded. And when they say propane tank, I think it's the one I have in my grill outside.
Right.
So I'm like, somebody died.
Oh.
But then it's just the little butane, little mini thing that they put in the little hot pot. So it was just a small gas explosion. Nobody was hurt.
Just a miniature gas explosion, nothing to get in.